Now is the time for all of us to do our part. Growth will not be sustained or shared unless all nations embrace their responsibilities. And that means that wealthy nations must open their markets to more goods and extend a hand to those with less. While reforming international institutions to give more nations a greater voice. And developing nations must root out the corruption that is an obstacle to progress for. Opportunity cannot thrive where individuals are oppressed and business have to pay bribes. That is why we support honest police and independent judges. Civil society and a vibrant private sector. Our goal is simple, a. Global economy in which growth is sustained, and opportunity is available to all. Now, the changes that I've spoken about today will not be easy to make. And they will not be realized simply by leaders like us coming together in forums like this. As useful as that may be. For as in any assembly of members, real change can only come through the people we represent. That is why we must do the hard work to lay the groundwork for progress in our own capitals. That's where we will build the consensus to end conflicts and to harness technology for peaceful purposes. To change the way we use energy, and to promote growth that can be sustained and shared. I believe that the people of the world want this future for their children. And that is why we must champion those principles which ensure that governments reflect the will of the people. These principles cannot be afterthoughts: democracy and human. Rights are essential to achieving each of the goals that I've Discussed today, because governments of the people and by the people are more likely to act. In the broader interests of their own people, rather than narrow interests of those in power. The test of our leadership will not be the degree to which we feed the fears and old hatreds of our people. True leadership will not be measured by the ability to muzzle dissent. Or to intimidate and harass political opponents at home. The people of the world want change. They will not long tolerate those who are on the wrong side of history. This Assembly's charter commits each of us, and I quote, to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights. In the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women. Among those rights is the freedom to speak your mind and worship as you please. The promise of equality of the races. And the opportunity for women and girls to pursue their own potential. The ability of citizens to have a say in how you are governed, and to have confidence in the administration of justice. For just as no nation should be forced to accept the tyranny of another nation, no individual should be forced to accept the tyranny of their own people. As an African American, I will never forget that I would not be here. Today without the steady pursuit of a more perfect union in my country. And that guides my belief that no matter how dark the day may seem, transformative change can be forged by those who choose to side with justice. And I pledge that America will always stand with those who stand up for their dignity and their rights, for the student who seeks to learn, the voter who demands to be heard. The innocent who longs to be free. The oppressed who yearns to be equal. Democracy cannot be imposed on any nation from the outside. Each society must search for its own path, and no path is perfect. Each country will pursue a path rooted in the culture of its people and in its past traditions. And I admit that America has too often been selective in its promotion of democracy. But that does not weaken our commitment. It only reinforces it. There are basic principles that are universal. There are certain truths which are self-evident, and the United States of America will never waver in our efforts. To stand up for the right of people everywhere to determine their own destiny. "65 years ago. A weary Franklin Roosevelt spoke to the American people in his fourth and final inaugural address. After years of war, he sought to sum up the lessons that could be drawn from the terrible suffering. The enormous sacrifice that had taken place. We have learned, he said, to be citizens of the world, members of the human community. The United Nations was built by men and women like Roosevelt from every corner of the world, from Africa and Asia, from Europe to the Americas. These architects of international cooperation had an idealism that was anything but naive. It was rooted in the hard-earned lessons of war. Rooted in the wisdom that nations could advance their interests by acting together instead of splitting apart. Now it falls to us, for this institution will be what we make of it. The United Nations does extraordinary good around the world feeding the hungry. Caring for the sick, mending places that have been broken. But it also struggles to enforce its will, and to live up to the ideals of its founding. I believe that those imperfections are not a reason to walk away. From this institution they are a calling to redouble our efforts. The United Nations can either be a place where we bicker about outdated grievances, or forge common ground, a place where we focus on what drives us apart. Or what brings us together. A place where we indulge tyranny, or a source of moral authority. In short, the United Nations can be an institution that is disconnected from what matters in the lives of our citizens. Or it can be an indispensable factor in advancing the interests of the people we serve. We have reached a pivotal moment. The United States stands ready to begin a new chapter of international cooperation, one that recognizes the rights and responsibilities of all nations. And so, with confidence in our cause, and with a commitment to our values, we call on all nations to join us in building the future that our people so richly deserve. Thank you very much, everybody. Barack Obama. Address to the United Nations General Assembly on Palestinian Statehood. Delivered September 21, 2011, New York, New York. Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, fellow delegates. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me to be here today. I would like to talk to you about a subject that is at the heart of the United Nations, the pursuit of peace in an imperfect world. War and conflict have been with us since the beginning of civilizations. But in the first part of the 20th century, the advance of modern weaponry led to death on a staggering scale. It was this killing that compelled the founders of this body to build an institution. That was focused not just on ending one war, but on averting others. A union of sovereign states that would seek to prevent conflict, while also addressing its causes. No American did more to pursue this objective than President Franklin Roosevelt. He knew that a victory in war was not enough. As he said at one of the very first meetings on the founding of the United Nations, "We have got to make, not merely peace, but a peace that will last." The men and women who built this institution understood that peace is more than just the absence of war. A lasting peace for nations and for individuals depends on a sense of justice and opportunity, of dignity and freedom. It depends on struggle and sacrifice, on compromise, and on a sense of common humanity. One delegate to the San Francisco conference that led to the creation of the United Nations put it well. "Many people," she said, "have talked as if all that has to be done to get peace was to say loudly and frequently that we loved peace and we hated war." Now we have learned that no matter how much we love peace and hate war, We cannot avoid having war brought upon us if there are convulsions in other parts of the world. The fact is, peace is hard. But our people demand it. Over nearly 7 decades, even as the United Nations helped avert a Third World War. We still live in a world scarred by conflict and plagued by poverty. Even as we proclaim our love for peace and our hatred of war. There are still convulsions in our world that endanger us all. I took office at a time of 2 wars for the United States. Moreover, the violent extremists who drew us into war in the first place, Osama bin Laden, and his Al-Qaeda organization remained at large. Today, we've set a new direction. At the end of this year, America's military operation in Iraq will be over. We will have a normal relationship with a sovereign nation that is a member of the community of nations. That equal partnership will be strengthened by our support for Iraq for its government and for its security forces, for its people and for their aspirations. As we end the war in Iraq, the United States and our coalition partners have begun a transition in Afghanistan. Between now and 2014, an increasingly capable Afghan government and security forces will step forward to take responsibility for the future of their country. As they do, we are drawing down our own forces, while building an enduring partnership with the Afghan people. So let there be no doubt, the tide of war is receding. When I took office, roughly 180,000 Americans were serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. By the end of this year, that number will be cut in half, and it will continue to decline. This is critical for the sovereignty of Iraq and Afghanistan. It's also critical to the strength of the United States as we build our nation at home.